It's just a touch after 5 o'clock Eastern time. We've got week 4 of NFL action on tap, and the FTN Network has you covered. Welcome to the FTN Bets NFL Betting Show. I'm your host, Tom Hannifan. I'm joined by Taylor Mathis, who has only been wrong on one prop all season long. And of course, the fantastic Mike Randle today as we dive into more week 4 action. I want to show you the slate of games for this upcoming weekend. We will react to Thursday Night Football here in just a moment, but I want you to see what you're working with this weekend in the National Football League. For those of you watching us live on YouTube and Game Plus, thank you so much. On YouTube, you can get involved in the chat and let us know what you'd like us to weigh in on. Remember, this show is for you. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications on YouTube, of course. Comment, like us as well. Later on, we're going to have our 3 and Out segment, our best bets, that is. We're going to see our bronze, silver, and gold picks from our experts, Mike and Taylor. We recommend you keep an eye, however, on all our official bet trackers, including FTN Alerts and, of course, FTNBets.com. And you can become an FTN Bets premium member today and save 10% when you sign up with the code FTN Wins. You can get access to our top analysts, tools, picks, and more. Visit FTNBets.com for more information. So, Mike and Taylor, things are off to a very interesting start this weekend because last night, Thursday Night Football was, I would say, rocky. The injury to Tua Tagovailoa was terrifying for a lot of people to see what happened to him. But in the end, on the field, the important thing for the Cincinnati Bengals was that they walked away with the victory. So, Taylor, I'll start with you because I know you got out with the skin of your teeth in regards to props last night. What did you think about that victory for the Bengals and what was marred by what happened to Tua?
I almost think the victory is pretty much non-existent after what happened to Tua. I mean, I think that's the biggest focus right now because there's so much beyond just him getting injured. Now, of course, there's going to be an investigation into what the Dolphins have done, if they followed protocol when it comes to concussions. And I've been seeing things around Twitter today that people are saying they suggest that he doesn't even play the entire rest of the season. I'm no doctor, so I don't know, but I think that that's the biggest takeaway of the game is how scary that is and how much more seriously the NFL needs to take their concussion protocols.
I completely agree with you. And to see former Miami Dolphins quarterback and teammate of Tua Tagovailoa, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was on the halftime show for Prime Video and was very, very emotional. Obviously, they have a strong connection, so you can tell this rocked everybody. And, Mike, I was watching that game, and to see that injury occur with, I think, a little less than 6 minutes to play there in the second quarter, I do not understand how the Miami Dolphins got out there and were in the right frame of mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the key is the secondary action. So, sure, he may have cleared concussion protocol. I'm going to go on the fact that the Dolphins are not lying about that, especially now when there's such a spotlight on the Dolphins as a whole. But the question is, what happened on Sunday? Does that risk a secondary concussion? That was always the case. And sure enough, you saw it. That was scary. Him on the ground with his hands like that. Obviously, he got released. That's great news. But we have to take it a step further. The NFL has tried with concussions. They put the rules in place. I understand that. But this wasn't about him clearing concussion protocol. This was about assessing the risk of a secondary injury. And unfortunately, hopefully he's okay and can recover. It happened again.
Taylor, in regards to the betting side of things, because that's what we're all about here, how did you feel about your action last night?
Well, I felt good about my T. Higgins play, but I was on the Dolphins plus 3.5. And once that happened, I was like, I think that might be out the window. Teddy Bridgewater looked better than I expected at first. But then when that turnover happened late in the fourth, I was like, I'm done for. That interception just my Dolphins plus 3.5 bet was definitely canceled. My other bet that I was on was Joe Burrow over 35.5 pass attempts, and he just missed that by the skin of his teeth. I thought that he'd throw a little bit more of the ball than he did, but I also was expecting it to be a little bit closer in the fourth, thinking he'd have to throw down the field a little bit more, which that didn't happen. So unfortunate, I went 2-1 overall on the night.
It's your first loss of the year, though, right?
Yeah, 1-2 on the night. I got that wrong.
Well, You know what? You've had a really good run, and thank you for joining us so much. No, I'm kidding. We're going to dive into a handful of games that are going to take place this weekend. And, of course, hop in the chat if there's specific games that you want us to talk about. Please let us know. C saying no Chris Meany this week. Yes, we actually gave Chris Meany some time off. He does not work every show for FTN Bets or FTN Network. So we just want to give him, an hour to take a nap, and we're just going to put him back on something else, I'm sure. Dan Rivera, thank you for hopping in the chat. Pittman this week. I know Mike Randle might have something regarding Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. Later on, we will get to that in just a moment. And speaking of the Colts, it's the first game that we want to dive into. It's Titans at Colts. Colts are getting -3 at home. The Titans are 1-2 entering this game. Indy is 1-1-1. Mike, this is a division that is just saddled with mediocrity, and I don't even know if mediocrity is a nice way to put it. When you look at this matchup, what does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me that you're looking at a Colt team that is going to open up a can of whoop ass. That's exactly what's going to happen against these Titans here.
Thank you for that, Stone Cold Mike Randle.
That was for you, Tom. No problem. I think the Colts are the best team in the division. I'm hearing rumors that Shaq Leonard should be back this week. I think they're the best balanced team. Jacksonville has been very impressive. I don't like this Titans team. I have faded the Titans team coming into this year. Yes, it was Derrick Henry. Yes, he's incredible. But even last week, guys, they went against a Raiders team that is not really that good. And I like Derrick Henry to have a big week, but only 80 yards there rushing. So it's very reliant on Henry. The Colts are very motivated. Recent history, they have ended up struggling against the Titans. Michael Pittman is back healthy. The Colts, I think, are going to take off. Every year with Frank Reich and the Colts, they always struggle. I just don't think the Titans are very good. They're terrible in defense and DVOA. So I like the Colts here. The number is scaring people because it's hanging around 3.5. I'm going to lay it. I think the Colts win comfortably.
Taylor, when you take a look at this matchup, Matt Ryan, hopefully for Colts fans, has a chance to bounce back. He's got 4 interceptions in the last 2 games. Last game out was a tie, obviously, and that is like the worst possible thing that a football fan can see go down. What do the Colts have to do against Tennessee, who actually has a fair amount of injuries on their defense?
Oh, when I look at both of these teams, the Titans and the Colts, I really struggle finding anything that I like about either of them or this game in general. I think both of these squads really seem like they're still trying to discover who they are as a team, and they've just been disappointing. I've been on the Jags since the beginning of the season too and been fading the Titans, so I'm not surprised by this. I also think that Derrick Henry is going to have a big week, so I agree with Mike on that. I like it from a betting perspective. Running back Derrick Henry for a longest rush prop over 14.5 yards. Henry's already hit this in 2 out of 3 games this season. His longest rush has been for 24 yards last week, and he's averaging 18 carries through the first 3 weeks. I think this is kind of a unique and fun prop to play. And if you need something to pay attention to in this game, why not hope for Henry to capitalize on one good run, find a hole, and go over 4.5 yards, 14.5 yards. So I like that as a random, really fun prop to play.
It is fun. I actually do like that. I would take that bet. Another one that I want to throw up to both of you guys, and Mike, I want to see what you think about this, is that on FTNBets.com, Colts quarterback Matt Ryan right now as an over-under on half an interception, anywhere from +110 to +135 right now if you bet on FTNBets.com. Which of those do you like?
Yeah, it's got to be over, because he has struggled so much, and Taylor is the interception predictor. She's been fantastic with those. I think you have to go over. I put out on Twitter last week, can you stop fumbling, Matt Ryan? So he's had some issues with the turnovers. I just said the Titans defense is not great, but it's been a history here of Ryan. And I think part of that works to the prop that we'll talk about at the end with Michael Pittman. He's not spreading the ball around a lot, so defenses may be keying on that. So I do expect a Colts win, but that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. I would go over Matt Ryan with that interception.
Taylor, what do you think?
I think I would go with Matt Ryan to get an interception as well in this one. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. Already 4 on the season. Hey, throw in 5, maybe 6.
And on top of that, Indy's O-line has already given up 12 sacks this season. Tennessee does have a decent front seven, so even though they've got some injuries on their defense, they should be able to get some pressure on Matt Ryan. And usually where there's pressure, there are picks. So we'll see what happens there between the Titans and the Colts this weekend. Taking a look at some of the chat. George Z, thank you for hopping in. We appreciate it. Yes, it is a whole bunch of goats here on the FTN Bets NFL betting show, not to pat ourselves on the back. Let's talk about Chargers at Texans. The LA Chargers are getting -5 on the road. The Texans, as we just talked about, the slogging AFC South, are 0-2-1. This seems like a very interesting matchup because I found one stat really interesting. This is the worst run defense in the National Football League in Houston against the worst rushing attack in the LA Chargers. Taylor, this feels like something that maybe there's a chance for the LA Chargers to bounce back. Maybe Justin Herbert is a little bit more healthy after having a few weeks now to recover from that brutal rib injury, but I just don't know. What do you think about that spread?
Well, the Chargers are really starting to concern me. They currently only have a 22% chance to make the playoffs this year. And normally I would just say, lay the 5 points with LA against the Texans. I mean, that would seem like the normal thing to do. But if you can't win ball games with the banged up squad and quarterback Justin Herbert playing through a rib injury, you've got offensive tackle right now, Rashawn Slater, who's out for the entire season. Defensive end Joey Bosa hasn't played. And the list just keeps going on and on. And when you have an injured quarterback, your run game has to step up to the plate. And the Chargers just aren't doing that. They rank last in rushing, and they haven't recorded a single rushing touchdown all season either. So roll with the Chargers running back, Austin Eckler, under 54.5 rushing is one of my favorite plays this week. Eckler hasn't come close to this number all year. He's averaging just 26 yards through the first 3 games, and he has just 5 yards last week against the Jags. That's his longest rush of the season, has only been for a whopping 8 yards. So I'm fading Eckler and going to continue to fade that rush game of the Chargers.
Mike, despite both teams coming off of losses, I tend to side with Taylor on this, and that this just feels like it's set up for Houston to poach a victory at home. What do you think?
100%. And she's right on the money with the rushing attack. The Chargers don't believe in Austin Eckler as a 3-down back. I know he had 20 touchdowns last year. I think that was an anomaly. They've shown you that they're giving different guys opportunities. They're trying to save them for passing downs. You brought up the point about the Texans' run defense. I get it, but their pass defense is actually 9th in DVOA per Football Outsiders. So here comes Herbert, who we don't know is healthy. Keenan Allen, who's still coming off an injury. We have a consolidated target share. And I know Mike Williams looked great against the Chiefs, but Mike Williams always looks great against the Chiefs. Remember the 3-touchdown game on Monday night a couple of years ago? This concerns me. I don't even know why the Chargers are favored, to be honest. I think 5 is crazy. I love the points with the Texans. I love the money line if you want to go there with the Texans. This is a solid, competitive Houston team. We saw them last year at home against the Patriots play very, very well. I am all in on the Texans. I agree with Taylor.
Taylor, are there any bets that you would feel comfortable putting down on Houston quarterback Davis Mills? An interesting set of statistics. In 8 career home games, he averages 245 passing yards per game. He has 14 touchdowns and just 1 interception at home. Did that blow your mind? Because it blew my mind.
It's blowing my mind right now, you saying that. Wow. Like, maybe you should take Davis Mills over on his passing yards. I haven't really looked at too many of the prop lines for him or too many props in this game. I mostly looked at Chargers run because I was like, they've been absolutely terrible. So just continue to fade them over and over until they prove differently. But hey, take Davis Mills over on his passing yards. That sounds like a good bet.
I've got a prop for you guys because I know we typically so much tend to focus on offensive players in regards to props. And I decided to turn things a little bit in a different direction. I want to see how you guys feel on focusing on a defensive player. Safety, Derwin James for the LA Chargers. Over under 7.5 total tackles on FTNBets.com. You can get that for +104. Personally, I take the over. He's averaging 7.2 tackles for his career per game. And this season, he has 9, 9, and 6 over 3 games. So, Mike, what do you think about that?
Tom, it's a great call. And even though Taylor may not be happy with her picks from last night, I love the strategy, which is she saw the Dolphins playing well and went with Burrow over on the attempts because that's her prediction for game flow. I'm going to go over on those tackles for Derwin James because I think the Texans are going to be able to rush it against the Chargers. And I think Derwin James, without a big-time safety he has to worry about, like Travis Kelce, is going to keep sneaking up in the box, and they're going to have to commit to stop Dameon Pierce. What will happen, as you said, maybe Mills goes over the top with Brandon Cooks there. But I love that over because I think the Texans are going to have success. I think they're going to play well, which means how are they going to move the ball in offense? I think rushing is going to be a big part, and James is going to sneak up a little bit, try to stop the run.
Taylor, over under 7.5 tackles in the game for Derwin.
Ooh, I'll go over with everything. I agree with everything you guys have said. And I love that you picked a defensive prop because I feel like those are rarely ever looked at. I have one that I like this week a lot as well. So I was like, I'm going to be on one defensive prop just to throw it in there and see how it goes. But I'm like, we usually always stick to these offensive guys.
I just wanted to mix it up because honestly, I played in one fantasy league where it actually involved individual statistics for individual defensive players. And I so enjoyed it. I haven't done one since, and I would really like to do another one. But anyway, to the point, Taylor, you were making a few moments ago about Davis Mills. Thank you to Quan for the note. Davis Mills right now, it's an over-under on passing yards of 229.5 minus 114 on FanDuel. That's at FTNBets.com for anybody that's interested in betting on long neck Davis Mills come this weekend. So that is what's going on with the Chargers and the Texans. Let's talk about Sunday night football, and we'll get to Monday night football here in a minute. It's a clash of Titans, so to speak. Two teams that were expected to be the front runners in their respective conferences don't necessarily look the part just yet. Mahomes and Brady don't even entirely look like themselves. The Chiefs enter this game getting minus 1.5 in Tampa Bay against the Bucs. This has been a really difficult week for everybody in the state of Florida and frankly for everybody in the Southeast. So we're thinking of everybody that's dealing with Hurricane Ian right now and the after effects. The Buccaneers during this past week were displaced to the Miami Dolphins practice facility and have come back to Tampa. The game will be played in Tampa as of now. There's a lot of things here, Taylor, that could throw off a football team, but it just seems like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been thrown off all season. Maybe getting Mike Evans gets things back on track this weekend. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of circumstances surrounding this game that lead to a recipe of oof, we're not sure what exactly is going to happen. Like you said, Tampa hasn't really looked like Tampa. Brady hasn't looked like Brady. I rarely ever follow betting trends, but I think I'm going to in this game and take the under on the total 45 in primetime. This trend is even more apparent under Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Their last 3 matchups, all of those have hit the under as well. Tampa's offense has only scored 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks, and their defense has won the games for them, allowing a league low of only 9 points a game. KC is a very high-scoring offense, but last week, the Colts held them to just 58 rushing yards, and the Bucs' D is even better than the Colts. So if Tampa's D limits KC to points, plus the Bucs' offense isn't scoring, and we're in prime time, I think that's an absolute recipe for the under to hit at 45.
Yeah, big matchup in Sunday Night Football. The first time these two teams have faced off since the Super Bowl 2 years ago, which the Bucs won against Kansas City Chiefs. Mike, do you put any stock in the displacement that the Bucs have had this week, having to kind of bounce around the state of Florida, come home, and then you take on this passing attack with Patrick Mahomes? Well, granted, McCole Hardman's a little bit banged up, but Travis Kelce still lives and breathes, and you would imagine that Mahomes is going to be targeting him a lot this game.
Yeah, of course, that we hope everybody's safe with the weather. And I just think from a handicap perspective, that does make a difference to me. I have been down on this Bucs team. I faded them coming into the year. No Ryan Jensen. Tom Brady is a statue. Teams are able to get pressure and disrupt him. Let's remember, last week, they had 6 points against the Green Bay Packers defense. You may not like the Chiefs defense, but I don't think the Packers defense is that much better, especially up front. So Brady leads them down because the Packers are playing prevent, scores a touchdown, almost gets a 2-point conversion. If the clock didn't run out, Fournette would have got that in. They would have went to overtime. And people forget the fact that they struggled at home against Green Bay for pretty much 4 full quarters. I like the Chiefs in this spot. I also like the under. Pace of play, Tampa Bay, neutral game script, 22nd in the league. They are not playing fast. Brady needs those weapons. I think the Chiefs come in and play very well. They are mad about that game. You saw the arguing between Mahomes and Bieniemy at halftime. Sometimes you can fade that. I am not going to do that. There's a lot of money and bets coming in on Tampa Bay right now because, as Taylor mentioned, sometimes you go with those trends and you have to ignore them. Sometimes you have to follow them. I know Brady off a loss is dynamite, 34-6 in his career, whatever it is, but this is not the same team. There is no Godwin out there. We don't know about Julio Jones. He's missing Wednesday practices. There's issues outside, and his offensive line is not as great. That Tampa Bay defense is legit. They have to carry this game. That's why I love the under as well, and I'm going to go with Kansas City and lay the point. I think Patrick Mahomes gets one here in Tampa Bay.
And maybe look at some action regarding Cole Beasley, who seemed to be a spark a couple weeks ago. And then on top of that, Cameron Brate, the tight end, is always very interesting. Kyle Rudolph is vulturing a couple catches here and there, so that's something to be aware of. Taylor, the one connective tissue I'm feeling so far in these games that we've talked about is bad rushing attacks, and that's exactly what Kansas City has. They had 58 rushing yards last week against Indianapolis in a loss, and they're facing the fifth best run defense in Tampa on Sunday Night Football. So I don't know what's going on with Kansas City because it's not a lack of talent necessarily back there, but this offensive line, how do they get on track?
I'm not really sure what they need to do. I feel like it's an overall consensus throughout the entire league right now that I just don't think the run has been as good as we would hope and would want to see. Even like I was saying with Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, of course, is going to rely to throw to guys like Mike Evans, Godwin, Julio Jones. But if you don't have any of them out there, you have to rely on the run. I was high on Leonard Fournette last week to go over his rushing total, and he was still well below what I thought he would be at too. So I just keep thinking these running backs, when are some of these big guys going to step up? I feel like Nick Chubb is the only running back in the league right now that you can bank on. Other than that, a lot of these big guys, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, they've all been hitting under their prop lines as well.
I think the only other one maybe is Atlanta's Cordero Patterson, who is like sort of a running back, sort of a wide receiver. So I like him a little bit. I've got a challenging prop for you guys. Patrick Mahomes is getting over under 25.5 completions. That's available for plus 100 on FTN Bets with DraftKings right now. Based on what you were just talking about, Mike, in terms of Tampa slowing the pace of this game, do you think Mahomes could get to 25.5 completions over under?
I do, Tom, because I think the way they have to operate on offense against this Tampa Bay defense is going to be that short passing attack. You saw Tyreek Hill last night, a lot of side passes, short slants, things like that. I think Mahomes knows without having Tyreek Hill with his new cadre of weapons, he can't attack this Tampa Bay defense deep. He's going to have to go short. They're not going to be able to run the ball. So how do you solve when you can't run the ball? You're going to do short dump-off passes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, things like that. So, yes, I think he can, because while I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, I think the type of plays that Kansas City is going to run is in the short to intermediate route, which should lead itself to a lot of passes. And a bend but don't break Tampa Bay defense is going to let them work their way down the field. So, yes, I think he can actually get it, even though I like the under.
Taylor, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I agree with everything Mike's saying right now. I as I said before, too, I still like the under very much. Completions wise, Patrick Mahomes, hey, if he's going to take a lot of short check down passes like we're thinking, I think taking the over on his completions would be a good move.
We'll see what goes down on Sunday Night Football. Let's turn our attention to Monday Night Football, and the theme with bad rushing attacks simply continues. The LA Rams have a terrible running game. I'll put it at that. They're averaging 72 yards per game between Darrell Henderson Jr. and Cam Akers. They haven't been able to get anything really going. Neither of them has cracked 70 rushing yards in total on their own in a game. And on the flip side, it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo and company are not the Super Bowl favorite that a lot of people believe them to be entering this season, whether you think that was with Trey Lance or with the eventual involvement of Jimmy Garoppolo. Mike, I'll come to you on this. Jimmy Garoppolo, is he ready for this?
Yeah, he's ready. There's been a lot of criticism about Jimmy G. I go through the quarterbacks. I had an argument with my cousins on this one. I go through the quarterbacks. He's an average NFL quarterback. He's not a guy that's going to go 300 yards, jump on my back like Mahomes, and take you to the Super Bowl. But if you go through each of the quarterbacks right now, you name as many as you would have, I'm usually going to put him around 19, 18. And I think that's where he is. He is home now. It's going to be his second start. That Niner defense played very well. I think we're going to see a much improved Jimmy G against a Rams team that has struggled a little bit this year. They got to keep Matt Stafford upright. He has that shoulder issue, which is still lurking. This is not the same team as last year. And you mentioned it. They can't run the ball. I expect a big performance from the 49ers. And yes, Jimmy G is fine. If you need him to throw for 350 and 4, I don't think he's your guy. But there aren't many other quarterbacks like that. And if you go through the other teams and try to figure out how many you would rather have over Jimmy G, I don't think you're getting to 20. So yes, I think he'll be fine here. Big spot at home against the Rams.
If anything, Taylor, the loss to Denver 11-10, which was one of the worst football games I've had to physically sit through and watch in a long time, inspires a lot of confidence in the 49ers defense if you're putting down some bets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say one thing that I always want to know from the 49ers faithful is why do they hate on Jimmy G so much? Maybe I am a slight homer. He grew up in Illinois and he went to Eastern Illinois University, which is really close to where I grew up. So I have like a slight fandom with Jimmy G and I always cheer him on. So maybe I'm being a little biased, but this matchup's usually always really fun between the 49ers and the Rams. The stakes are usually a little bit higher. The last time they met, it was the NFC title game. The Rams overall have had more success in general. They've been to 2 Super Bowls and won one, but head to head, the 49ers have won the past 6 regular season games between these two. Jimmy G didn't play great against the Broncos, but I think he's in a bounce back spot this week. He knows how to operate Kyle Shanahan's offense very well. He did turn over the ball twice at the end of the second half last week, but the Rams have been struggling. They're the 3rd lowest run offense right now in the league. But I think that Sean McVay really works with his offense and tries to figure out different ways to capitalize. The jet sweep TD he did with Cooper Kupp last week was great. I think that that's where the Rams are going to have the edge, is basically Sean McVay making the calls there over the 49ers. I think that not having Trent Williams is also going to be a very big struggle for the offensive line for the 49ers this week. I'm going to go with the Rams to win this game.
It's a lot of Debo and a lot of Cooper Kupp. I'm very excited to see what happens there. And to your point, Taylor, do you think it's 49ers fans were expecting to receive Tom Brady from the New England Patriots? And when they saw what Jimmy Garoppolo had done, they're like, oh, he might be the second coming. And he turned out to be, to Mike's point, average.
I think he's, again, maybe I'm being a homer. I think he's a little bit better than average. I mean, when you look at what you want a quarterback to do, win games. His win percentage is a lot better than his loss percentage. I think he sits around maybe like 13th, 14th best in the league, but I might be pushing it a little bit. I will admit I do have some bias there. I just like Jimmy G, and I feel like that fan base is just too tough on him.
I agree with you. And personally, I don't think Trey Lance is the long-term answer as much as San Francisco would like him to be. And Jimmy is probably the best case scenario for what they have right now. So credit to that front office making kind of pulling up there at the last moment, making sure they could get Jimmy Garoppolo to stick around in San Francisco. I'm going to keep it with Jimmy because I think he's a lightning rod of this game. I've got a prop for you guys. Over under on FTNBets.com right now in regards to passing yards. Over under anywhere from 218.5 to 224.5. Mind you, the Rams give up an average of 269 passing yards per game this season. Mike, over under.
Yeah, it's right there. I'm going to go over because I expect a big performance from him. And just to your point that you guys were saying, Taylor's going to say above average. I'm fine with that because let's remember, he connects on one deep pass in the Super Bowl. They probably win that Super Bowl, and he's Super Bowl MVP, and the whole narrative changes like sliding doors. I like it over there. I expect a big game from Ayuk, who I've been very high on. Debo's a problem. Healthy Kittle now has been back for one game, and I like the Niners, so let's bet the prop as we think the game is going to go. I'll take over on Jimmy G.
Taylor, what do you think of the passing yards for Jimmy?
Yes, love that play. I was on Garoppolo last week over on his passing yards as well. It didn't hit. He missed by 6 yards, something really little. But it was actually, I believe the line was quite a bit higher than 214.5. So I definitely like the over here. I think that Jimmy G is also going to come out and have a great game. I think you look at that game, they would have won a Super Bowl. You also look at the NFC title game. I mean, they only lost by 3 points, and that was at the very few, last 1 minute of the game. They could have been on their way to a Super Bowl last year as well under Jimmy G. So I think we got to give him credit here. I think he has a big game over 214.5 passing.
Of course, this show is for all of you watching live on YouTube, and thank you for tuning in on Game Plus as well. In the comments section, Taylor, Julia J has a lot of thoughts for you. So I want to start off. She's saying something here to the effect of, we don't hate Jimmy G. In fact, we love him. He's bringing us back to championship a game, fingers crossed. We think Shanahan is on a hot seat. If we don't get back there, do you think so?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure right now with the loss of Trent Williams. I am a little bit worried about that. They do have some injuries that concern me a tiny bit. I think if we see a good game out of Jimmy G this week and he continues with that momentum, there's possibility they could turn things around. I don't want to ever count out the 49ers. I think I was shocked that they beat my Cowboys in the first round last year. They almost made it to the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't count them out just yet. We're only 3 weeks into the season. I think this week could be a big week to determine how the 49ers are going to be the rest of the year.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't count him out. I don't think Shanahan's on the hot seat at all because, again, when everybody wants to get rid of a quarterback or a coach, who else are you getting? Shanahan has done very well against McVay, as we said before. He's an excellent coach. He's been to a Super Bowl, almost came back to a second one as an underdog, ran through the NFC last year. I think Shanahan's fine. Trent Williams is an issue. That is going to change it, but it's an opportunity. When something negative happens, it's an opportunity for Shanahan just to show how great a coach he is. I think you have a great one there in San Francisco, and I think he'll be fine. I expect, like I said, Jimmy G to get it going this week.
Thank you to our stat guy, Quan. In regards to Jimmy G, he is getting an over-under of 214.5 passing yards at -111 on Caesars at FTNBets.com. And also, Quan, thank you for the information regarding the San Francisco 49ers as a whole, plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl, according to PointsBet and Caesars. So you can check that out on FTNBets.com. So that's what's happening on Monday Night Football. And we have arrived at our 3 and Out segment. It is time for our best bets from our experts, Mike Randle and Taylor Mathis. We're going to start with our bronze pick. And of course, ladies first. Taylor, I already don't like this because it's against my Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. My bronze pick in the Jags-Eagles game, I'm taking the Jags plus 6.5. I am very impressed with this team and what they are doing. They're proving that they can be competitive in this league, and they look confident doing it. Head coach Doug Peterson, who's the ex-head coach of the Eagles, has done wonders, especially with QB Trevor Lawrence. Last season, he had only 12 touchdowns the entire year. Through 3 weeks, he's already halfway to that number with 6, and he only has 1 interception. This Jacksonville squad has a chip on their shoulder, and I hate using that phrase because I hate hearing it, but they do. And I think that they could possibly even win this one outright. I wouldn't be shocked. I think they're going to go in there trying to win this for their head coach, but I'll play it safer and take the points with Jacksonville plus 6.5 as my bronze pick.
Yeah, I respect that. I do think the Jaguars have got something going. I do believe Doug Peterson is going to be a factor in this game. Selfishly, I think my Philadelphia Eagles are on a nice roll here. I don't know if the Jaguars are enough, but I could see them covering. That's going to be a tight one. Mike, your bronze pick.
No one loves unders like I love unders, guys. Tyler Higbee of the Rams under 41.5 receiving yards at Caesars. Now, we just talked about the big battle here, Monday Night Football. San Francisco's defense, toughest against opposing tight ends in the NFL. Higbee, 57 receiving yards per game, but he's faced the 2 most giving defenses to opposing tight ends, Arizona and Atlanta. When he faced Buffalo in week 1, major negative game script there in the second half. He fell short with 39 receiving yards. Guys, his targets have decreased in 3 straight weeks, 11, 9, 4. His routes run have decreased in 3 straight weeks, 35, 32, 18. His receptions prop, which I always like to correlate here, is highly juiced to the under at 4.5. So let's put him at 4 receptions. He's averaging 10.7 yards per reception. He's number 2 at the position in yards after catch, which is not going to happen against San Francisco. Against San Francisco in his history, 6 of 8 times, guys, he's been under this number. And some of those are with a much better QB, a much less risky QB in Jared Goff. Then Matthew Stafford is going to take shots down the field. Rams, 18 points per game against the Niners the last 5 matchups. Take out the OT game, that drops to 16.5. Bronze pick, Tyler Higbee, under 41.5 receiving yards at Caesars.
I kind of like that. I like that pick a lot. The
I
under.
kind of love it.
The under makes me nervous sometimes, but I really like that. You talked about quarterbacks. Let's keep it on the West Coast. Taylor, your silver pick is a quarterback.
Yeah, my silver pick in kind of a garbage game, the Seahawks and Lions, two squads that I think are trying to figure out what their identities are as well. They're very up and down week to week starting the season. Detroit is the favorite for the first time since 2020, 4.5 points. So congratulations to Detroit for that. I feel like this game is going to be close, so I want to stay completely away from the spread in general. I'm going to roll with Seattle's quarterback, Geno Smith, over 22.5 completions. Smith has gone over this in every game this year, and he has a league high average of 78% completion rate. So I'm going to go Smith over 22.5 completions. I know that's one thing that I feel like I can bet on is for Geno Smith to be precise and accurate in these games. And I think he'll continue to do that this week against the Lions.
He really stepped up big in that game to open the season against the Denver Broncos in a way that this guy certainly was not expecting, nor was the rest of the country, considering it was the homecoming of Russ. It was a big deal to see Geno Smith step up. And listen, he's a veteran at this point, and he seems to be doing all the right things for the Seattle Seahawks. Earlier on, we were talking about the Chargers and the Texans game, and Mike, you were singing the praises of Dameon Pierce.
Yep, and I'm also going to sing the praises of our guy George with these graphics because these are lights out graphics. Let me tell you,
he is.
Silver pick, guys. Dameon Pierce over 59.5 rushing yards. I think it's going to be a huge Pierce game here. They have to run the ball against the Chargers. You can shop around and get this. It's possibly down to about 59. I don't think it will stay there. Dameon Pierce. First 3 games, 11 carries, 15 carries, 20 carries, and he's getting the ball in the red zone. That first game was the Rex Burkhead game. That was an anomaly. They believe in Pierce. His total yards, 39, 77, and 101, and that is not bolstered by a lot of receptions because he's only had 4. I think they're going to have to run the ball with Pierce. I think they'll have success against the Chargers, and this is right around the number. I hit it on Josh Jacobs last week. I love these 59 rushing yards in a game that I think the Texans are going to win. They're going to be home. They're going to be underdogs. That's a lot of rushing. Yes, Mills has success as a passer, but they don't have a ton of receiving weapons. Give me the Texans to be winning, positive game script, and give it to Pierce here to get at least 60 rushing yards.
Let's turn it over to our gold picks, and let's keep it with running backs. Taylor, who's your gold selection?
Yeah, so for my gold pick this week, I kind of have 2 plays on the same guy that I'm really liking. So we're looking at the Jets, Steelers. New York is getting their very hopeful franchise quarterback, Zach Wilson, back into the mix for the first time this year. And Pittsburgh is screaming for QB Mitch Trubisky to hit the bench and for their rookie, Kenny Pickett, to hop onto the field. I think there's a bright spot for this Jets team, and it's going to be their running back rookie, Breece Hall. I'm going with Hall over 38.5 rushing this week. Hall's hit this over in 2 out of 3 games this year. He's averaging 7 attempts per game. This week may be the simplest task that Hall has to endure with the Steelers' run D that ranks 28th in the league. We can expect the Jets to take some pressure off of Wilson in his first game back and feed it to these backs. I'm also going to go over on Hall with his rushing yards at 38.5, and then as well take him over 16.5 receiving yards. The Jets have really been using him as a receiving back. He had 6 catches last week for 53 yards. So I think it's a solid play to go all in on both of those plays with Breece Hall this week.
I really like that. That's a big chance for the Jets, and frankly, they need to lean on him a little bit more. Let's see, Mike, it's time for your gold pick. Does anybody want to take a guess who Mike's gold pick might be? Any guesses whatsoever? No? Does he play for Indianapolis? Is he a wide receiver? Mike, who is it?
Dan said it before. It is Michael Pittman, folks, over 69.5 receiving yards. Am I supposed to be scared of the Tennessee Titans pass defense? Is that really what I'm supposed to be scared of? He was injured a little bit, which is why I think this number is too low. He's ended up doing this year in the 2 games. He had a 96% snap share and a 98% snap share. He's had 13 targets and 9 targets. He's had 17 receptions, and his receiving yards, 121 and 72 there against Kansas City where they were winning. I think a big performance for the Colts. I think it's going to be Michael Pittman. He gets the targets from Matt Ryan. They have that connection. I think this number is way too low because they expect it to be closer than I think it's going to be. And I'm not afraid of the Tennessee Titans pass defense at all. Michael Pittman at home, gold pick, over 69.5 receiving yards. Yes, I'm a truther. Yes, I believe. And yes, I've been right most of this year.
You're right, and you're right about Michael Pittman a lot. So everybody, pay attention. I do want to go to a fourth down here. Now that we've completed our 3 and out best bets, this is fourth down, and it's a question from Julia J. Once again, here in the comments section, we thank you all for tuning in here live on YouTube and Game Plus for this. Julia J's question is specifically for Taylor. Mike, I want to hear from you too. Is in regards to the Jags-Eagles game. Who would you pick? I think this is maybe leaning towards more fantasy, but overall betting success.
Okay.
Wide receiver Devontae Smith or Zay Jones of the Jaguars? Who do you like in regards to putting your money on overall in this game?
Ooh. Oh gosh, that's a good question. I'm not a big DFS player or fantasy. I have my leagues. I got to tell everybody about this because it's a fun little story. I decided to get all my girlfriends involved in fantasy this year. So we have an all girls league, and I am teaching them how to play fantasy and learning more about football because they don't know really anything. So it's been really fun to teach them. I might roll with Zay Jones this week. I don't really have much reasoning behind that. Like I said, I'm not a huge DFS person, so I don't really have much reasoning for you there. I'm sure Mike could give you a little bit more insight into that.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going with Zay Jones here, probably because he's going to come at a number that I think is going to be lower than Smith. So Zay Jones is actually running a decent amount of routes, over 30 routes this year. He's had 9 targets, 11 targets in weeks 1 and 3. He's still under the radar, coming off 10 receptions, 85 yards against the Chargers. That Jacksonville team was very impressive last week. I'm with Zay Jones on this one. Eagles defense will play and will be aggressive, but I still don't think he demands attention. They're going to demand it off of Christian Kirk. So I think I'll go with Zay Jones because I think I'm getting a better number, and he still has the volume.
I will defer to our wonderful viewers. Head to FTN Bets right now and check out all the possible props for Devontae Smith and Zay Jones. There you have it from our experts, Mike Randle and Taylor Mathis, excuse me. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this show. I nearly said Taylor Smith, and that would have been wrong. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Sincerely, you guys are fantastic. This show will be back this next Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern live here on YouTube, as always. So thank you all so much. For Mike Randle and Taylor Mathis, I'm Tom Hannifan. Thanks for tuning in to the FTN Bets NFL Betting Show. Good luck this weekend.
Wow.